Tonight, Drayden Power will talk about our provincial and municipal electrical systems with respect to future demand for EV charging. Drayden is the new electric utility manager for the city of Penticton. He is an engineer and a former manager of EV infrastructure and investment with FortisBC.
Okay, so a presentation overview here. We're going to start by telling you who I am and why I think I'm qualified to be giving this talk. Then we're going to go into the climate conversation that surrounds EVs and the energy future of our province. We'll go into some details about EV charging. We'll talk about service upgrades for if you do buy an electric vehicle or get a heat pump and want to upsize your electrical panel or your electrical service. We'll talk about what happens when everyone does that and the impact to the overall system. And then we'll go through some opportunities to save money on making these conversions with rebates. And lastly, we'll go over some carbon credits, which is an awesome, awesome part of living in BC and Canada, that there are these programs out there. So just to clarify for everyone, what Jim is talking about is public charging, because right now the regulatory environment only allows us to bill public charging on a per minute basis. We actually aren't allowed to bill on an actual consumption per kilowatt hour basis, okay? So typically I'll use FortisBC as an example because I deployed a bunch of those. It was 54 cents per minute to use our 100 kilowatt charger and 26 cents per minute to use our 50 kilowatt charger. And as Jim pointed out, depending on the vehicle you have, depending on the temperature outside, depending on the battery conditioning that took place leading up to the charge event, your vehicle will charge at a very different rate, and it fluctuates incredibly high. And over 80%, it's different. It's wild, okay? So what I can tell you today is that has been taken under consideration by Measurement Canada. We have been lobbying our tails off to try and get them to change it. And at the end of 2022, they completed a consultation on what it looks like to transition to consumption-based billing. So our friend here has just purchased his electric vehicle, and he has a ton of questions, okay? He's looking at all these terms. He's saying amps, volts, kilovolt amps, kilowatt hours, kilowatts, level 1, 2, and 3 charging. What is going on? What is going on? So we're here to kind of debrief, demystify all of this, okay? The first thing we're going to talk about is batteries. Gone are the days of picking between a Nissan Leaf and a Tesla, okay? The light duty sector is blowing up. That's one of my favorites, a Hyundai Ioniq 5. There's new vehicle classes coming online. That's the Ford F-150 Lightning. Trucks are here. Trucks are here. Next year, SUVs and minivans probably. And of course, commercial users are not left in the dust. This is the Ford Transit that's fully electric, and it is offering something to that class of vehicles and to that business user that hasn't been there. According to the Clean BC Roadmap to 2030 and the ZEV mandates that are federally enforced, 26% of new vehicle sales by 2026 have to be zero emissions. And in BC, we're special here. It's less the rest of the province, or the rest of the provinces, sorry. 90% of new vehicle sales by 2030, big jump in 4 years, have to be zero emissions, okay? That poses a challenge for utilities, I'll tell you that jump. And then finally, we'll limp our way to the finish line 100% by 2035. I say limp, but that's still quite a fast limp in my opinion, trying to get to 2035, where 100% of new vehicles sold are zero emissions, most of those probably being electric. The future grid modernization is going to include a massive amount of battery storage, okay? When you think about these kind of generation tools like wind and solar, the problem with them is that solar doesn't generate when it's not sunny, and wind doesn't generate when it's not windy, right? But when those things are happening is not necessarily the time that we need that demand, right? As I showed you, most residential demand is at 6 p.m. Not a lot of sun at that time. You need to utilize battery storage to take full advantage of solar generation. They go hand in hand. They're tied together in these grid modernization techniques. And what's exciting about solar is that when you're thinking, oh, I want to get solar, but yeah, I'm not at home in the middle of the day. What am I going to do? Do I have to buy a battery? Well, if you're parked at least one vehicle at home in the middle of the day, you have a battery. You have a battery in your house, right? And that's the exciting part, is that as much of these electric vehicles are cool and they're fun and they're offering a climate solution, they're also energy storage that you have at your home to backfeed your home, to store energy from solar or other kind of micro generation you may have. And don't get me wrong, having battery storage is great. If you have a vehicle that's often out of the home, that's another great tool. But there's grid level battery storage, there's residential level battery storage. A lot of these solutions are needed to shave that peak demand of a whole electric system and to give us the resiliency moving forward that we want. What people often neglect to realize is that the best way is not to just transition our fuel consumption, but to actually reduce it. right? The reduction of energy that we spend on transportation is important too. And that's why active transportation in your local municipalities is so important. So as I said, I'm lucky enough to be working for the city of Penticton now. And one of the efforts that the city has put forward towards this is the Community Climate Action Plan. Okay, so there's many things going on with this. There's kind of 6 big moves that have to happen. 3 of those big moves involve transportation. Okay, so when you think about your daily commute of getting to work, and you might be taking a passenger vehicle by yourself, right? Is it possible to be transitioning that instead of just to an electric vehicle to a bike commute? Is it an electric bike or even walking, right? So that's why the city is putting forward things like on-street painted bike lanes, all ages and abilities bike lanes, multi-use paths and trails, so you're able to walk or jog or hike or whatever you want to do.
Thanks so much, Drayden. Just a couple of notes before we wind up about our upcoming deep dives. We're still working on February's topic, so just check out our website in the next week or 2, or better yet, subscribe to our newsletter. That comes out near the beginning of each month.